Connor Reeves had survived 3 shuttle malfunctions, a lunch with a Martian diplomat who tried to stab him with a seafood fork, and one deeply unfortunate karaoke night on Titan Base 9. But as he stepped into the grand hall of Halcyon Delta Station, he had the creeping feeling that this, whatever this was, might end up outshining all of those. The room pulsed with ambient light cycles that made everything feel like it was part nightclub, part cathedral. Diplomatic representatives from 17 systems floated, hovered, or walked across the opalescent floor in shimmering robes, armor suits, or the occasional pair of fuzzy slippers. Ambassadorial flair knew no limits. Connor adjusted the collar of his rental tunic. It itched, badly, probably made from recycled synthetic algae. The invitation had said formal interstellar attire recommended, which apparently meant dress like a shiny tablecloth and pretend to know intergalactic etiquette. He tried to blend into the wall, preferably one without a blinking display panel. The last time he leaned against one, he accidentally summoned a drink drone that sprayed him with fizzy kelp water. "Just smile and nod," he whispered to himself. "Don't make eye contact with anything that glows." And then it happened. Across the room, a Liurnian woman turned her head. She was tall, poised, with silver-black hair cascading like liquid starlight, and elongated ears that flicked slightly as though catching a signal no one else could hear. Her eyes locked onto Connor's like she was tracking a comet in a dark sky. Then, casually, conversationally, she turned to her companions, 2 elegant beings who looked like they'd just walked off a luxury cruise through a nebula, and said, "This is my husband." The words landed like a sonic grenade. Conversation stopped. The room didn't fall quiet exactly. It more paused, like someone had pressed the universal remote on reality. Even the floating drink drone halted mid-pour and rotated its dish lens toward them. Connor blinked. He glanced behind him. Nope. Wall. He looked down, shoes still mismatched. Fantastic. Husband? Someone whispered nearby. Did she just claim the human? This is outrageous. Also kind of adorable. Quick, someone file a bonding notification before the Zorathi delegation declares a ritual duel. Connor took a breath. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he offered to no one in particular and everyone at once. The Liurnian woman was already walking toward him, each step slow and deliberate, like she was pacing out an oath in a language made of gravity and intent. She stopped 3 feet away. The air shimmered faintly, the way it does before a shield activates. "You may not remember me yet," she said, voice calm and precise, with the tone of someone announcing the weather or mild planetary extinction. "But you are mine. I claimed you years ago." Connor's brain did a full system reboot. Okay. Look, I'm not against dating. I mean, I'm very open to new experiences. In fact, my last relationship involved a botanist and a 6-legged therapy lizard. But I think maybe. You were injured near Garas 12. Radiation breach. You saw me through the window before your ship lost power. That did happen, he admitted slowly, but I assumed I was hallucinating. I mean, I also saw a pineapple giving a TED talk. That wasn't a hallucination. The Garunites were experimenting with sapient fruit broadcasts. It was canceled due to ethical concerns. Connor squinted. "You're messing with me." She smiled for the first time, only a little. He gave a nervous laugh, trying to figure out if this was a prank, a kidnapping, or an unusually immersive dating app demo. "So, just to clarify, you told everyone I'm your husband. Is that a metaphor, cultural greeting, some kind of interstellar knock-knock joke?" "It is a bond declaration, binding under Liurnian tradition." "Ah, great, cool, just what I wanted, surprise marriage at a work event." One of her companions approached, a dignified figure with jeweled antennae and a permanent frown. "You have caused diplomatic turbulence," he told Velisari. "The Terran is not trained. He has no bond education. He eats processed protein." "I've seen him make tea," Velisari replied. "He has potential." Connor raised a hand. "Sorry, quick question. How do I politely decline an alien wedding without triggering a war? You can't, said the jeweled frown. You could try faking your death, offered a voice from the Zernak's table. I vote you lean into it, said a tall being with translucent skin. At least she's hot. Velisari turned back to him. You may ask questions, I will answer. Okay, first one, why me? She tilted her head. Because the moment our minds touched, I knew. You were injured and I reached across the void. I saw your memories, your pain, your jokes. The time you tried to use a translator on a parrot and accidentally taught it tax evasion. Connor coughed. That bird had it coming. I laughed, she said. Liurnians do not often laugh. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I'm flattered, really. But maybe we just take this slow. Grab a drink. Watch some asteroid documentaries, not jump straight to lifetime binding ceremonies. You are welcome to court me if it eases your Earth mind, she said. But know this. I have chosen. The bond is active. Your proximity already confirms compatibility. I mean, people said that about my toaster, and it still burned everything I loved. She stepped forward, gently took his hand. Her touch sent a strange warmth up his arm, not heat exactly, more like recognition. Something familiar, unsettling, comforting. He didn't pull away. All right, he sighed. Fine, but if I'm your husband now, do I get a title? Diplomatic immunity, access to the good vending machines. You get me, she said simply. Oh, that's kind of a big prize. The frowning companion muttered something in Liurnian that sounded suspiciously like soft-brained mammal. Connor glanced around. The entire room was still watching. Somewhere a small cheer erupted near the drinks table. Well, he said, guess I'm not single anymore. Velisari smiled. And in that exact moment, somewhere on the far end of the galaxy, a warning beacon lit up. The starborn pair had been identified, and not everyone was pleased. Connor sat on a couch that looked like it was grown rather than built, trying to figure out whether he was dreaming, concussed, or part of an elaborate prank show hosted by extragalactic lifeforms with a twisted sense of humor. The couch kept shifting slightly under him, adjusting to his weight like it couldn't decide whether he needed lumbar support or a full therapy session. Just to recap, he said aloud, rubbing his temples. I walked into a party, got married, adopted a political controversy, and I still haven't had dinner. A small drone floated by, offering a translucent cube on a silver tray. It pulsed pink. Connor stared. What's this? Protein-based confection, flavored with something your species considers nostalgic. Velisari answered from across the room. She was adjusting a control panel on the far wall, tapping sequences that made the air shimmer faintly. He sniffed the cube. It smells like peanut butter and childhood shame. Perfect then. The flavor mesh is accurate. He popped the cube into his mouth and was immediately overwhelmed by the memory of third-grade gym class, awkward crushes, and his grandmother's aggressively microwaved cookies. That's disturbingly effective. I accessed your memory imprint, Velisari said calmly. You were very emotionally attached to sugar at age 9. Connor coughed. That's past tense. She approached him with an expression that would have been called neutral by her species, and deeply intimidating by his. Her long ears twitched slightly as she scanned him again with what he assumed was a health monitoring field, or a sarcasm detector. He wasn't sure which. You passed out during our link, she said. You're exhibiting neural fatigue and mild cognitive scattering. I'm also exhibiting what humans call a full-blown mental breakdown. But thanks for not mentioning it. Velisari's fingers hovered over the couch interface, and it abruptly reclined, causing Connor to flail with the grace of a startled cat. He ended up halfway upside down, legs over one armrest, arms flailing toward an invisible dignity. This couch is sentient, isn't it? He muttered. It's semi-aware, likes musicals, you'll get along. A small hologram appeared beside them. A Liurnian male in official robes, eyes like twin moons, face set in that same permanent, someone just insulted my air filtration expression. Velisari, the projection said, We request clarification on your bond declaration. The High Assembly demands you present the Terran for synaptic verification. There are protocols. Of course, she said, serene as a still lake. Verification, Connor asked, a test. Like a blood test, multiple choice. Please tell me it's not a singing competition. The hologram flickered. Failure to comply within 72 cycles will result in the dissolution of diplomatic privileges and formal exile under Code 7 Delta. Connor gave a thumbs up to the projection. Great. Threats. Nothing says romance like bureaucracy and exile. The hologram vanished. Connor turned toward Velisari. Can I ask a really basic question? Why did you do this? You could have picked anyone. Literally anyone. There was a guy with glowing tattoos and 6 PhDs standing 3 meters from me. Why not him? He doesn't laugh during meteor showers. Connor opened his mouth, closed it. I do that. In your memories. During the rescue, I saw your mind. You were drifting in a failing pod. You made a joke about dying with better hair than your commanding officer. Ah, that tracks. Humor in the face of entropy is rare, she said. Among my people, it's considered a trait of anchor minds, those who stabilize others. He blinked. So, I'm emotionally qualified to be your anchor because I make dumb jokes during mortal peril. Yes, and you saw that and thought. Husband material. Correct. He ran both hands through his hair. I need caffeine. You need neural stabilization, but I'll get you a drink. Moments later, a drone hovered in with something that fizzed and glowed faintly blue. Connor sipped it. Tastes like bubblegum and existential dread. Then it's working. They were interrupted by a knock. If you could call the low-frequency sonic pulse that reverberated through the doorframe a knock. A Lyarnian delegate stepped in, followed by a Terran diplomat who looked like she hadn't slept since Earth's last election cycle. Mr. Reeves, the human said with a clipped accent, do you have any idea what you've done? Statistically speaking, he said, probably not. You've triggered 17 inter-alliance protocols, violated 4 interspecies courtship laws, and instigated a pending sovereignty debate between Earth Gov and the Lyarnian Council. Okay, but on the bright side I didn't spill anything. The Lyarnian delegate interjected. We welcome this bond, it is unprecedented, fascinating. Terrifying, the human added. Delightful, Velisari murmured, the human sighed. Listen, you're now a diplomatic asset. Until this is resolved, you're under cultural protection. You're not to leave this station. You're not to communicate with Earth media. And for the love of the void, do not accept any additional marriage proposals. Connor saluted. Understood, no surprise weddings, got it. The delegation left with a warning that they'd be back with paperwork, legal counsel, and, worst of all, PR managers. He collapsed backward again. I used to be a linguist. I just wanted to study dialect patterns and maybe flirt with cute waitresses at satellite bars. Now I'm married to an alien diplomat and being watched by 14 different intelligence agencies. Velisari handed him a tablet. We should begin the bond preparation exercises. He stared at it. There's homework. Basic tasks, mental syncing, empathy calibration, shared dream recall. Also a brief quiz on your favorite type of sandwich. Oh, that I can do. He scrolled the tablet. The first question read, in the event of neural overload, what comfort item would your mate require? He typed, hot chocolate in silence. Velisari glanced over. That is correct. He narrowed his eyes. You already knew that. She looked smug. Of course, I've seen your dreams. Connor tilted his head. So, what do I dream about? She smiled. You once argued with a vending machine for 9 minutes over spicy pretzels. He nodded. Yep, that sounds about right. The couch purred beneath him. And somewhere in the digital shadows of the station, a signal pulsed out, encrypted, silent, urgent. The breechless had seen enough. The first thing Connor noticed when he woke up was that he was upside down. The second thing he noticed was that he was upside down on the ceiling, tethered by what felt like an enthusiastic spiderweb made of warm jelly and mild regret. Oh good, he muttered. Gravity decided to rage quit. Incorrect, Velisari's voice said cheerfully from somewhere below, or possibly above, depending on one's definition of direction when reality decided to be optional. You engaged the ship's adaptive orientation system during your sleep cycle. I what? You rolled onto the secondary interface pad. The ship interpreted that as a request to enter training mode. Training for what? The Cirque du Soleil. Zero-G edition. There was a gentle humming sound, and the floor, that had become the ceiling, gently pulsed. The sticky support web released him with a wet pop, dropping him onto a spongy surface that caught him like a patient gym mat. Velisari stood nearby, sipping from a crystalline flask, and wearing the kind of expression that said she'd been watching for at least 10 minutes and chose not to intervene purely for amusement. I recorded the landing, she said. For study, I'm sure it'll be very educational for future generations, Connor groaned, sitting up and brushing off something that looked suspiciously like glitter. They were on her personal ship now, the Tyrellian Dawn, which looked from the outside like a metallic lotus, and from the inside like someone had given a spa full access to quantum computing. Everything pulsed gently with light, moved when it wasn't looking, and occasionally whispered things in a language that Connor was 90% sure was either ancient Liurnian or passive-aggressive encouragement. So, he said, taking the flask she offered and sipping cautiously, it tasted like mint, stars, and maybe a hint of cinnamon. Where exactly are we heading? Liurn Prime, she replied. We're to present ourselves to the High Assembly. Formal recognition, neural verification, gift exchange. Do I need to bring a casserole? A bonding stone. I don't have a bonding stone. I prepared one for you. Let me guess. It's embedded with fragments of a dying sun and a lock of my hair. Close, meteorite core and a digital recording of your attempt to sing in the shower. His face went pale. You recorded that. She nodded, for sentimental value. The ship's AI interrupted them with a chime that sounded like a polite hiccup. Incoming transmission, it announced. High priority encryption. Civilian clearance overridden. Connor looked at Velisari. Did I forget to pay an intergalactic parking ticket? The hollow feed blinked to life. A severe-looking Liurnian with tattoos across her forehead and a gaze sharp enough to slice titanium filled the screen. Velisari, Terran. She paused. I am Archon Velia, third seat of the Assembly. We have received word of unauthorized transmissions linked to your neural pair. Connor raised a hand. Quick clarification, what exactly is a neural pair? The two of you bonded. One of your signals has been duplicated and used to access restricted diplomatic channels. This constitutes a breach. Connor's brain caught up. Wait, are you saying someone's pretending to be me? Worse, Velia said. Someone is pretending to be both of you at once. The feed cut. Velisari turned to him. We're being framed. Wow, I always wanted to be important enough to be impersonated. Really wish it had come with a gift basket, though. She tapped her temple, activating a neural stream. A map of space unfolded between them, roots branching in shimmering lines. One blinked red. Look, she said. This is where the signal was duplicated, the Iskar drift. That sounds illegal. It is unclaimed space, temporal anomalies, no official jurisdiction, the perfect place for a digital forgery. Connor sighed. Let me guess, we're going there, aren't we? Yes. Great. I always wanted to get murdered in unclaimed space. Adds character. The Tyrellian Dawn jumped into slipstream with a low roar that echoed inside their bones and slightly rearranged Connor's internal organs. They arrived minutes later, orbiting a blackened mass that looked less like a moon and more like a collapsed idea. Welcome to the drift, Velisari said. Connor peered out the viewport. Looks like someone unplugged reality and then tried to patch it with duct tape. They descended slowly. As they entered the atmosphere, the ship's instruments began to flicker. Interference, Velisari muttered. Something's jamming us. A burst of static filled the cabin, then a voice. Velisari, Terran husband, we see you. Connor's eyes widened. That's not ominous at all. Velisari's fingers danced across the controls. They've hijacked the subspace beacon, sending false bond data, creating chaos in the diplomatic network. A strange laughter filled the speakers, metallic, hollow, and unsettlingly cheerful. "We are the breachless," the voice said. "Your union offends the purity of the stars." Connor raised an eyebrow. Did they just come up with a space racist catchphrase? Velisari's expression turned cold. "They seek to unbind us. Can we just block them? Or mute them? Maybe with a really passive-aggressive reply." "They'll try to sever our bond using a psychic disruptor. We must protect the link." Connor sighed. "Of course they will. Can't just write a letter. No, gotta scramble our brains." An alarm blared. The ship rocked violently. "Boarding attempt detected." Connor grinned. "I always wanted to try a space fight." Velisari handed him a sleek silver disc. "What's this?" he asked. "Stun blade. It activates when you speak the word justice." "That's dramatic." "It's Lyarnian tradition." He held up the disc. "Do I shout it, whisper it, deliver a speech first?" She tilted her head. "Surprise me." The lights dimmed. Hull doors groaned. The enemy was aboard. Connor flexed his fingers, gripped the disc, and grinned. "Justice, baby," he said. The blade snapped to life. Somewhere deep inside the enemy vessel, someone watching the feed muttered, "Oh stars," he named the activation. "We're doomed." The stun blade hummed in Connor's grip like it had a personal vendetta against furniture. He spun it once, mostly by accident, and narrowly avoided slicing through a ceiling panel that looked suspiciously expensive. "Note to self," he muttered, "never trust a weapon that sounds like it's purring." Velisari moved ahead silently, a graceful blur of long limbs in focus, her own blade held low. The corridor of the Tyrellian dawn pulsed red with alert status. The breachless had breached. Irony clearly wasn't one of their weaknesses. Connor stayed close, eyes darting, heart pounding in that awkward rhythm that says, "You're not trained for this, but here we go anyway." He mentally reviewed his combat training. One weekend course called Self-Defense in Zero-G, where he spent more time bouncing off walls than learning anything effective. "Just so we're clear," he whispered, "are we aiming to stun, disarm, or mildly inconvenience?" "They've come to dissolve our neural bond," Velisari replied. "You may inconvenience with extreme prejudice." A ventilation panel crashed open above them, and a figure dropped down, tall, masked, armored in smooth black plating laced with bioluminescent lines. Connor yelped, flailed, and reflexively hurled the stun blade. It bounced harmlessly off the intruder's helmet with a cheerful ping, then skittered across the floor and stopped at Velisari's feet. The intruder paused, then looked down at Connor. "Was that your plan?" "Absolutely," Connor said. "I call it the boomerang bluff." Velisari stepped forward and dispatched the assailant with one smooth arc of her own blade. The intruder slumped to the floor, limbs twitching in slow shutdown. She looked at Connor, unimpressed. "I loosened him up," Connor muttered. They pressed deeper into the ship. Two more breachless emerged from an access corridor, weapons raised, slim rifles humming with particle charge. "Cover," Velisari said. Connor dived behind a console that immediately tried to sell him insurance for potential combat-related injuries. "I swear this ship is sponsored." Velisari moved like liquid lightning, disarming one attacker with a twist of the wrist and flinging him into the other. The hallway erupted in sparks, and the air filled with the scent of scorched ozone and bruised egos. Connor peeked out. "Clear." "For now," she said, "but they're not trying to kill us. They want us alive." "Oh good," he said. "That's never ominous." They reached the central chamber, an oval room lined with neural conduit ports and a wide, low platform at its center. It was the ship's bond core, a synchronization chamber designed for Lyarnian pairings. Normally it was used for ceremonial calibration, privacy settings, and once streaming a karaoke battle between diplomats. Now it was their best hope. Velisari keyed the panel. "We need to enter the bond stream." Connor's eyes widened. "The what now?" Direct mental link. If we synchronize our thoughts, it will block any disruptor signal they're trying to inject. That sounds wildly invasive. She placed her palm against the console. I've already seen your memories, Connor, including your attempt to flirt using a spreadsheet. He groaned. It was formatted, there were charts. You labeled one axis, romance potential. I was being efficient. Come, she said, lying back on the platform. Trust me. I do, he muttered and joined her. The chamber sealed. Lights dimmed. A soft pulse filled the air like the hum of a remembered lullaby. Neural tethers extended, connecting their temples. The bond stream began. Connor's mind stretched, then twisted, then suddenly expanded. He wasn't in the room anymore. He was everywhere. Memories cascaded around him, his, hers, a shared tapestry. He saw her first assignment, tense and proud. She saw his childhood, a mud-covered science fair and his mother cheering like he'd won a Nobel. He relived the drift accident, the moment her mind touched his through radiation and silence. Emotions blurred, laughter echoed, fear passed like a breeze. Somewhere deep within the stream, something darker stirred. They saw it at once. The breechless. A massive construct stood in the center of a mental void, tall and shifting, made of data fractals and jagged code. Its voice was a chorus of static. Dissolve the link, it said. Return to your kind. Connor stepped forward in the shared space. Counteroffer, you dissolve yourself into therapy. The entity snarled, you weaken your bloodline. Buddy, Connor said, I once dated someone who thought Pluto was a fruit. Trust me, this is a step up. Velisari stood beside him. We choose this bond. You are relics of division. You are infection, the entity growled. We are purity. Connor cracked his neck. Cool speech, but I'm a Terran and we're famous for one thing. Resilience, Velisari asked, stubborn sarcasm. He launched a memory into the stream. A food fight at his college, a pie hitting a professor, uproarious laughter. It slammed into the entity like a sonic wave. Velisari followed with one of her own, a ceremonial dance where she accidentally knocked over a delegate's chair and snorted mid-spin. The entity howled. Stop it. These are impurities. These are us, she said. The bond stream glowed. The entity flickered. Connor stepped forward, hand in hers. We don't fit into your idea of perfect, that's why we're real. The construct cracked. It imploded with a shriek of failed ideology and bitter code. The bond stabilized. They opened their eyes in the chamber. Everything was still. The ship hummed softly like it approved. The comms pinged. Status. Came the voice of the Liurnian High Assembly. Velisari tapped the panel. Neural link stabilized. Breachless interference neutralized. Connor leaned in. Also, we've proven that love, sarcasm, and mild trauma bonding can defeat extremist malware. You're welcome. The assembly was silent for a long beat, then acknowledged. Later, as they sat in the ship's galley, sipping celebratory mint foam drinks, Connor looked at her and grinned. So, what now? Velisari tilted her head. Now we inform the assembly that our bond is irrevocably confirmed. And then you're officially a Liurnian consort, with privileges. He raised an eyebrow. Do any of those privileges involve sleeping in a bed that doesn't throw me at the ceiling? She smiled, eventually. Cool, he said. I'll take what I can get. Outside, the stars drifted by. Somewhere, the last fragments of the breachless signal faded into static, and the ship's AI began composing a romantic ballad based on their battle, in 6 languages. Connor adjusted the ceremonial sash across his chest and immediately regretted it. The fabric had the consistency of overcooked noodles and the structural integrity of wet cardboard. Somewhere behind him, the Liurnian anthem hummed from hidden emitters, slow and regal, like it was trying very hard not to fall asleep. You look nervous, Velisari said without looking up. I'm not nervous, Connor replied. I'm deeply concerned about falling off the stage and starting a war with my face. You've already started an interstellar union. War would just round things out. That's comforting. She offered a small smile. You're doing fine. Fine. I just accidentally greeted the Zorathi diplomat using a gesture that apparently means, "Your fish is ugly." It was accurate. "You're a terrible influence." She tilted her head, "and yet here you are, bonded for life." He exhaled and looked at the enormous doors ahead. They stood outside the assembly hall on Lyern Prime, the most secure, most politically charged place in this corner of the galaxy. Every species with even a vague interest in peace, trade, or fashion diplomacy was inside. "I still don't know what I'm supposed to say," he muttered. "Speak the truth. I once believed cheese in a tube was the height of cuisine. My truth is questionable." The doors slid open with a theatrical hiss. Connor walked in beside her. The hall was vast and filled with diplomats, ambassadors, media drones, and at least one jellyfish in a floating tuxedo. He had no idea where to look. He defaulted to smiling politely at everything that moved, including a potted plant with biometric tags. Velisari took the central podium. "Honored assembly, we stand before you to affirm our bond. Not as a statement of rebellion, not as a spectacle, but as a reality." Murmurs echoed. Connor stepped up. "I wasn't planning to fall in love with an alien diplomat," he said. "I was planning to grade essays and complain about interstellar Wi-Fi." But then she looked at me, smiled, and declared I was hers. And weirdly, that felt right. The room stilled. I didn't grow up thinking about cross-species marriage or galactic treaties. I just wanted to understand languages, cultures, people. And now I'm married to someone who can hear my emotions before I feel them and still sticks around. Velisari reached for his hand. And if that's not a reason to rewrite tradition, I don't know what is. Silence, then applause, actual applause followed by diplomatic nods, and from the jellyfish, a series of bioluminescent pulses that might have meant, "Congratulations," or "Your pants are inside out." A Zernax official stood. "We move to formally recognize the Reeve-Zari bond as valid under interspecies law." "Seconded," came a call from a humanoid shaped like a melted obelisk. The vote passed unanimously, with one abstention from a faction who thought the entire thing was a soap opera, which, to be fair, it kind of was. Afterward they returned to the Tyrellian Dawn. The ship now bore a new hull signature, dual markings of Terran and Lyernian origin, joint representation, official status. Connor collapsed into the command lounge and sighed. "So, that's it. We're official now." Velisari poured him a drink. "We were official the moment you threw a stun blade at a diplomat's face. I thought that was a pirate. You thought it was a coat rack. Okay, technically true." She sat beside him. "Your mind has changed." "In what way?" "You walk with purpose. You argue with the food dispenser less. You no longer assume catastrophe is inevitable." "I still assume it," he said, "but now I bring snacks." She laughed. He looked at her, really looked. "You know, I thought this whole thing was some kind of mistake, that maybe you depict the wrong human, that I was just a glitch in your plan." "You were. I know that now, which is alarming. Because I think I might actually be happy." "That's not alarming," she said softly. "That's the bond." A soft chime interrupted them. The ship's AI spoke. "Priority message from EarthGov. Ambassador Connor Reeves is requested for immediate consultation on human Lyernian liaison framework." Connor stared. "I'm an ambassador now." "You are married to one," Velisari said. "It was inevitable." He sighed.